Welcome back to ASBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Obviously, we just saw Naoya and destroy Lewis Neary in 6 rounds, and we thought, where is his ceiling? Well, what's he going to do next? Could he continue at super bantamweight and defend all four of his undisputed world titles, or will he perhaps move up to featherweight and beyond? Owen, delighted to be joined by Owen once again. As we discuss this in this video, we're going to discuss how we think Naoya Inoue would perhaps get on against all of the champions at featherweight. How where his ceiling is? Could he go all the way up to super middleweight? No, I'm only joking. But how far could Naoya Inoue go? Owen, appreciate you jumping on with me as always, mate. Yeah, we've just saw obviously that Neary fight had to come through a bit of adversity. But I'm just going to throw it straight to you, mate, and think. And before we get into champion by champion and maybe go through a few names, do you think that Inoue could become world champion at featherweight, super featherweight?
Featherweight, absolutely. I've had a look through the champions. I've sort of matched him up fight by fight. And yeah, I think I'm having him. I'm taking him at that featherweight, definitely. Super featherweight, obviously, it's another step up. We've seen Inoue come in at sort of 122 pound in some of his fights. So I think the step up to 125 isn't outrageous, to be honest. Um, so yeah, I think featherweight definitely. Obviously, we'll get into it in this video, but pre-video, I just had a look at who the world champions are, just to refresh the memory, and I'd be very, very confident in backing a new weight featherweight.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe, in a year's time, say he's mopped up at featherweight as well. We could be doing another video about how would he get on at super featherweight. But yeah, as we mentioned, mate, going to talk about how we think Inoue would fare against all of the champions at featherweight. So just to let you guys know, obviously the WBA champion is Raymond Ford, who's fighting Nick Ball on the Queensbury in Matchroom 5 versus 5. You've got Ray Vargas, who's the WBC champion, who just beat Nick Ball, even though a lot of people had Nick Ball winning that fight. Brandon Figueroa is the interim champion for the WBC. Be an interesting one. Obviously, you got the WBO's Rafael Espinoza, who shocked Robeisy Ramirez last time out, won via majority decision. And then the IBF champion is Luis Alberto Lopez, who we've obviously seen beat Josh Warrington, Joey Gonzalez, Mick Conlon, sensational fighter. Quite a lot, there's those four champions at 126 pounds, Owen. If we go through each one, just kind of maybe in the order there that I've said them to you, I'll give my opinion as well. But say Ray Ford beats Nick Ball in this 5v5. How does Ray Ford get on if he's to fight Naoya Inoue?
I think it's a bit of a mad one as well, though, because obviously Nick Ball should already, in my opinion, be a champion at featherweight. But that'll take up most of our time in this video if we go through that. Listen, I like Ray Ford. I think the Nick Ball fight is a big one for me in terms of where he's at and how good he can be. I'm not saying obviously it's sort of a major step up. We haven't seen him against decent opposition, that type of fight, but I think how he does against Nick Ball will I'll see where, in my opinion, my personal opinion, where he ranks within the featherweight champions. But I think his style of fight, Inoue would take the fight to Ford. I think Ford would look to try and box. And to be honest, I don't think there's a style that doesn't suit Inoue. We've just seen him against a tricky southpaw. Got caught with a left hook. You know what you do have to look out for. Obviously, he did get caught with it, but look how he responded to it. So in terms of each fighter's different style. I think if you're going to try and box against him, you've got to win every minute of every single round, and avoid those big shots, which are they're just inevitable. So yeah, I think Ford would box well, but I think Inoue break him down. And probably I could actually see a points victory there or a late stoppage for Inoue. So I think Ford is good enough to try and get on his bike for a good majority. But yeah, Inoue down the stretch or on points.
Interesting, interesting. I agree. I think Inoue would beat Ray Ford. I think it's an interesting one with, I didn't think we'd even see Ray Ford defend his WBA belt at featherweight because of the weight. He said it was going to be his last fight before moving up, but obviously the money was too probably good to defend against Nick Ball. But I mean, I think Ray Ford's a brilliant fighter and he's a lot bigger than Inoue, but I would say Inoue winning. I'm backing Inoue every day to win that fight. Another man who's who's way bigger than Naoya Inoue. Well, two. We'll look at the interim champion as well because I actually like Brandon Figueroa. I'm going to throw him in the mix as well. Ray Vargas, massive big lump of a featherweight, and Brandon Figueroa. I think he's arguably even a bigger lump of a featherweight than Ray Vargas. How does Inoue get on against them? Massive size difference of one. But how do you think he fares?
You know what? I think it could actually suit him. You know, we see now, especially Ray Vargas, we see now Nick Ball got on. And it did take him a bit of time to sort of get the timing and the distance correct. But I think the difference is Inoue's a brutal body puncher. So someone like Vargas, he'll just work the body, and it's inevitable that he's going to catch him at some point. So I think if Inoue goes in, Vargas has got to prepare to fight a much smaller man and look after his body. So then that opens up for Inoue. I mean, he'd probably have to jump a bit like Nick Ball, but Inoue does. You've seen him against Neary today. He does step in a lot with those overhand rights and even some of the right hooks. He sort of bounces into them. So I think Vargas's style would actually set up for an Inoue knockout. I know some people might think it's mental. Nick Ball had him rocked and on the ropes, and I think Inoue is a lot more destructive than Nick Ball in terms of accuracy and technique. So I think that suits him. Brandon Figueroa is a bit of a difficult one as well because obviously he's quite a bit bigger than Inoue, but he's not sort of outrageously bigger. Um, so it's a difficult one at those weights. You know, I've just looked here, box rec have got Brandon Figueroa being 5'9.5", so he's quite a bit bigger. Than Naira Inoue. But again, we've seen Stephen Fulton. I thought he did deserve to beat Brandon Figueroa when they fought at the Super Bantam. So the way I see it, I know boxing maths doesn't always work out, and it's hard to do it that way. But we've seen just a destruction from Inoue against Stephen Fulton, and that was supposed to be the sort of the test of where Inoue's sort of dominance lies, and he just steamrolled through Fulton really. So hopefully my boxing maths works out there. But yeah, again, I see him stopping Ray Vargas and early to mid rounds. And with Brandon Figueroa, I think it'd be similar to Ray Ford down the stretch or points.
Interesting, mate. Yeah, I totally agree with the Vargas shout. I think Vargas is, in my opinion, is there for the taking of all the champions, probably, arguably the most. Figueroa, again, don't want to get caught up on him too much because he's not technically the champion, but I think that would be a tough fight, a really tough fight. I would maybe see Inoue winning that on points, and boxing a smart fight there. But yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll just fly through these last two. We don't have a lot of time left, but the WBO champion is Rafael Espinoza, as I mentioned, beating Robeisy Ramirez last time out. How does Inoue do against Espinoza?
I think he stops Espinoza. I don't think Espinoza looked great against Robsy Ramirez. You know, Robsy Ramirez is a difficult, he's a tricky fighter. He's very awkward. He did deserve it, Espinoza, but I just think again, styles make fights. And you just look, I think his style's just there for the taking. I don't think although he's got a lot of knockouts himself. Um, you can't bring the fight to someone like Inoue, and I think Espinoza would try and do so, a bit like Neary's done today. And once Inoue gets his range and starts taking over, I think it'd be quite similar. Maybe not as much adversity. I'm not sure if Espinoza would drop him, but he'd definitely catch him. And I just think again, Inoue be destructive, get his range, wait for Espinoza to come on to him and stop him.
I agree. The stoppage, we're basically agreeing with every single one. Luis Alberto Lopez, the IBF champion, the last one we're going to discuss. He's arguably, well, now that Lee Wood's moved up and Nick Ball's not the champion, he's my favorite. He's my favorite of champion at featherweight. I love Luis Alberto Lopez. I think he's compelling viewing. But how do you think he does against Inoue?
Now that's the fight I'd want to see because Luis Alberto Lopez is all action, his pace, his power. He brings the fight. But again, I think Inoue would stop him. I'm going for a full house, another weight undisputed. I just think, again, Luis Alberto Lopez, he's not going to box on the back foot. I don't think it's in his nature really to do so. He's going to want to knock Inoue out. And again, I think it's not too much of a weight jump. Inoue's clearly still got all his power at Super Bantam. So if he goes up to featherweight, I think he'll still hold the same power, same destructiveness, same sort of clinical finishing ability. And honestly, I think that'd be fireworks. I think, as we said, where we've seen Luis Nery, after he got the first, after Inoue got his first knockdown, sorry, they just stood and traded for what was only must have been maybe 25, 26 seconds and felt like it was about a minute and a half, where they were just going at it. So I think, again, Luis Alberto Lopez, he brings the fight, he brings that. It's an all action contest, and I think Inoue knocks him out sort of mid to late rounds.
Interesting, mate. Yeah, I think although I love Lopez, I think he's so unorthodox and a bit reckless, which I think would play into Inouye's hands. So yeah, I do agree, mate. Remember, both saying he probably becomes undisputed at 126 now as well.
Yeah.
Guys, let us know your thoughts on how Inoue fares against all the champions at featherweight and just how far could he go? Could he even win a world title at super feather? Or who would put it past him? Maybe even winning one at lightweight. Let us know your thoughts. Owen, pleasure as always, mate. Speak to you again soon.
Thank you, mate.